At long last, I'm ready to present to you my watercolor nutcrackers. This topic is actually what spurred my entire channel. I taught these courses locally and we had so much fun, and I had a whole bunch of friends that live abroad or live on other parts of the country or couldn't make it, and we just really wanted something to do together and something that I could offer them. So here we are today, and I don't mean to play favorites, but if I did have one, this might be my favorite of all classes. I just think that nutcrackers are so fun and easy to play with. There's so many different color and pattern combos and so many different ways to approach them and to make them have their own little personalities. So here are a couple of my favorites, and I'll walk you through creating a bunch of these. I tend to follow a more is more category when it comes to choosing fonts and, or not fonts, but patterns and colors. It helps to kind of look around your home and decide where this is going to go and what kinds of colors you have in your usual holiday decor palette. We're going to be using, my daughter made this one, I'm so proud of her. We're going to be using watercolor. I have kits. This is a 36 palette kit that I have on my website, or you could find them on Amazon or any other good craft store. I like these because you can mix colors if you want. If you're into that sort of thing, you can mix the colors and store them in these little bubbles. And if you don't really want to, there's so many other colors to choose from. So it just makes playing around with watercolor and exploring this new topic very easy. If you look on my website, I recommend that you sort of pick out what or take a peek at what pattern you might want to try and sort of visualize how it's going to come together. Think about, do you want the hat to be patterned, solid? Also, when this is dry, you can even go over with a little bit of gold acrylic paint to make it sparkly if you want. So that's always kind of fun. I think this one we painted gold in the little top of his hat as well. But take some time to sort of check over, think about what patterns you might want to use, what colors you're going to use, and look at the examples on my website as well. Today I'm actually going to get started with the girl. And she's new to me this year. I'm so excited. She's so cute. All right. I left her sort of open-ended, meaning I didn't put a skirt on because I felt like some people might want to do a full-on maxi skirt. Today I'm going to just sort of draw a little midi skirt on her. And I'm going to use a really light pencil. You can go shorter. Wait, hold on, let me see. You can go shorter if you want, give her a little flare. You could do a tutu even. But when we paint over it, I'm going to make sure that I sort of cover up these lines as well with a busy little pattern. I think I might also give her a sweetheart neckline. There we go. She needs to feel a little bit more feminine. So for her, I'm going to do sort of a green gingham pattern. I'm going to do solid green up here. I'm going to do the peppermint swirl here. And then I think I might do polka dots along here. And then this green will be gingham, and I'll walk you through doing that together. But I like it when these dots and this match. This is also really cute if you have it with a gold accent. But the first step that we're going to do is we're going to paint her face. And I'm going to use the peach color for her. And that one's this one over here. Now for this part, I'm going to use the medium-sized brush. Make sure I've got my water handy. And this is the peach color that we're going to use. While I'm here, I like to remind everybody that the best way to keep your brushes safe is to take your paint from an angle like this. If I put my brush down here and crush, it's going to ruin that pretty little tip at the end of the paint that makes it so, at the end of the brush that makes it so easy to paint all my details. Now, I've got a lot of water and just a little bit of paint, and I'm going to sort of move around. I'm not going to paint over her eyes or her eyebrows. There we go. And if I feel like it's too dark, I might just kind of spread it out a little bit. Oops, and I guess we're gonna go all the way down to her chest here. but I'm not going to cover up her teeth or anything. And the reason why I'm not doing that is because you once you put watercolor paint down, it's difficult to erase, and it's not impossible. And I'll cover how to fix mistakes in a little bit. I'm going to even add a little bit more water to sort of lighten it up a little bit. It's not impossible to fix mistakes, but once you paint over a white area, it's very hard to get it truly white again. So I'm gonna paint her face and I'm gonna let this dry. The thing about watercolor paint is that it runs together. If you put two bits of wet paint together, they'll run. So I don't want to end up with a brown face unless I'm doing that intentionally. And then also I'm going to paint her little hands. Even just kind of picking up some of the paint from her face and any areas that look a little blotchy. There we go. Okay, so while this is drying, I'm going to clean off my paintbrush and I am going to paint the top part of my hat. And the reason why, again, is because this is not touching that, so I can make this nice and solid green and the colors will not run together. So for this part, I'm also going to use my big green brush, and I'm going to go with this sort of grass green down here. It's in the bottom left-hand corner. It's kind of around the grays if you have the same palette or a similar palette. Sometimes they kind of change where these little dots are. So for this part, just nice solid green. And I think I might also paint her boots the same color too. And notice how just a little bit of paint really goes a long way. Okay, let's get those little boots done. Okay, now that these are all set, this is dry. Something I did want to show you guys too. If, let's say, you make a mistake, you get a little bit of paint somewhere that you didn't like, or if you decide you want to try a different color, you can actually get an area wet with a very clean paintbrush, and then you can sometimes put paper towel on and it'll pick up the paint. Like here, see how I'm just kind of blotting up this paint? And it's not perfect. Sometimes it, especially if it's been sitting for a little while, but it is a very forgiving paint. And if you do make a mistake and you work quickly to blot it up, people will never know that you made a mistake. They'll be none the wiser. There we go. Okay, next up, I am going to go ahead and paint a little bit of green around. Let's do her eyes. And this hat is not quite dry, but it's mostly dry. So I feel comfortable getting started with my little peppermint swirls on her hat as well. So just gonna, now the eye, when I look at it, it's just like a little U shape. I'm not gonna fill in the white part of her eye, just sort of the, what is it, the iris? This little green part right here. And then I'm gonna wait until that dries, and I'm gonna do, I'll wait until that dries, and then I'll do the pupils at a later time. Don't attempt the pupils now or it'll all run together. Now, the peppermint swirl is kind of tricky. What I want you to think about is drawing lines outward from the center position. So there's like a little dot in the center, and I'm just gonna kind of trace these lines. And I'm gonna do thin, pressing just a little bit with my little brush. Helps to think of it as kind of a U. And now that that's done, I'm actually gonna take a thicker line, and I'm gonna make the thicker line by pushing down just a little bit harder on my paintbrush. And that's gonna go just in between all these thin lines. And if you mess up, remember you can just blot it, or you could even just paint it solid green or solid red. I'm gonna make this one a little thicker so it's a little bit more prominent. Okay, let's do the same for these guys, and I'm just gonna have, we'll start with this one, and again, I'm being very careful not to put my hand in the paint. I think if it's better if we start with this one. And it might help to fast forward and pause it and see how this came together before you get started, so that you can sort of visualize what to do. Sometimes that makes it a little easier. And then this, the dots here, so same thing. Okay. Now I go in with the thicker dots, thicker lines, sorry. Okay. Oh, I forgot the top one. There we go. Okay. I think that's about all I need for my small green brush for the time being, but I do want to go in and get her little lips and cheeks on. So I recommend using a little bit of scratch paper just to make sure that you know you've picked the right color. But for her, I'm gonna go with this light pink. This fuchsia would also be really cute too. And my brush is nice and clean. I got it wet and I wiped it on my paper towel. And I'm just gonna paint a nice little cheeky circle right here. And another one right here. And what that does is it just kind of, It provides a little extra pop of color, makes her cheeks look her face look a little bit more complete. I'm also going to use the same color for her lipstick. Because she's so fabulous. Okay, well that's drying. I'm also going to do her pupils. And if you look closely at a Nutcracker too, they have a little line. It sort of looks like eyeliner across the top of their eye like that. Just extends out past the eye a little bit. There we go. She looks a little mad. They all look a little mad to me. Okay, we got that done. And then cleaning my brush off. For the last step, now that the lips are dry, I'm gonna do some red gums for her. And I'm gonna use this sort of candy apple red right here, and just really take my time and make sure that I get very light pressure on the brush. And I'm just gonna kind of go in between each of the teeth. But you wanna take some extra time, take a couple deep breaths before this part so she doesn't end up with red teeth. Murder Nutcracker. Okay, she's looking so lovely. So now that this part's done, I'm gonna go over the hair. And since I'm blonde, I'm gonna go with blonde, but I'm gonna do more of a yellow blonde than a natural blonde. So I think that I might, let's see, I'm gonna go with this sort of middle yellow. And with this color, we're gonna work lighter. It looks like there's a little paint left over from earlier, excuse me. We're gonna go lighter and then add in some darker lines and lowlights, but I'm gonna use a lot of water and just a little bit of paint. And we're gonna let this dry. We're also gonna get her eyebrows. And I'm just sort of using, you might notice too, I'm just sort of using the tip of my paintbrush to trace the little edges of her hair so it looks like natural pointy hair. And then some blonde eyebrows. My eyebrows are not blonde, but I suppose you could do brown or black too. We'll see how I feel about it. We're gonna go light for now, and then if I decide that I wanna go darker, it's easier to go darker over light paint than it is to go light paint over dark paint. All right, I'd say she's looking pretty good upstairs. So I have got my medium-sized brush, and I'm going to start by doing my little polka dots on her little feathered part. Boa, whatever, hat rim, whatever you'd call it. We'll do polka dots. And I'm just kind of making them a little random, I feel like. Cute dots. Now, gingham is one of my favorite patterns to paint. And you're gonna start with the vertical lines, and we're gonna work from left to right so that we don't put our hand in paint if we're right-handed. If you're left-handed, I think you want to do the opposite. So I'm going to paint the vertical lines first. And I'm also going to kind of follow the curvatures of her dress and her body. If I paint straight up and down, it doesn't look very natural. So notice that I'm sort of curving it along her breast area. And I'm going to do the same when I get to her skirt as well. This is another situation where it might be helpful to fast forward and then look and see where I put all of my lines. And here we go, we're gonna trace sort of the outside curvature of her dress so that it looks three-dimensional. And if you get to this point and you think, oh, I hate the way that this is looking, try adding the vertical lines and see how, the horizontal lines, and see how you feel about it. Maybe that'll kind of clean it up a little bit. Or you could always just fill it in all green, or put a lot of water on it and blot it with your paper towel. And this this pattern just really covers up her little guidelines for the boots that I had. Now I'm in the middle, so my lines are a little straighter. Like if I were looking at it head on. We're gonna sort of start curving again now that we're on this side, following this line right here. Okay, now time to start. Oop, I forgot her little, this arm. Don't wanna. Got it, okay. And I'm gonna trace along. See how these are sort of curved because she has a round arm in 3D. There we go. Same thing up here. We're gonna kind of treat her top as though it's a little bit more rounded and three-dimensional. So these are sort of curved lines, just slightly. Kind of follows the curvature of her little belt. Oh, she's looking so cute. Now, as we get down to the bottom, you can see that the bottom of her dress sort of fans out a little bit, so I'm just going to kind of trace this line. All right, perfect. So her shoulder pads and cuffs, I'm going to paint solid green also to kind of pull in her hat and tie it together, but please feel free to use whichever pattern floats your boat. And then I'm actually going to take some acrylic paint and I'm going to wait until, I'm going to use my special acrylic paintbrush. And I'm going to paint the staff and the base gold. Now when I say use a different brush for acrylic paint, it's because acrylic paint and watercolor don't really get along very well. One is made of plastic, one is made of just sort of a pigment powder and likes water, and one doesn't really like water quite as much, so they don't really get along very well. So it's helpful to just really make sure that your brush is totally clean if you're just using the same brush, or I would just get a different brush entirely if you have one. All right, everybody. Well, here she is. For the time being, I'm going to let her dry, and I'm going to start with a couple of other designs to sort of show you different techniques, but for now she looks pretty cute, I would say. What do we think? All right, next up, I'm going to start with this guy. I'm going to skip painting his face and everything, but I did want to show you his hair, and I wanted to show you one of my favorite techniques too is doing a color wash and then going in with more intense color. So for right now, this little guy is going to be, I think I might do tulips for him, and we'll make him red. And I'm going to start by using this candy apple red, and I'm going to do a color wash. And what I mean by that is I'm just going to have this be really, really light, and I'm going to use a lot of water and let this dry. And after it's dry, then I'm going to go in and add some patterns with a lot of paint. And I'm gonna have, let's see, we'll leave his little, that by itself, but I'm gonna paint his outfit the same way. And notice that around his beard, I'm using my, same thing with the brushes, I'm using my itty bitty tippy point of the paintbrush to sort of go in and add these details to make it look like the hair is a little bit pointy. Okay, now that that's dry, I'm gonna let that dry. And again, I'm still using my medium-sized brush. I'm gonna go over and I'm gonna paint his hair black. And I'm gonna just use a lot of water to make it start gray, because again, with watercolor, it's always easiest to go dark to light. So we're gonna use our paintbrush to sort of paint these hair strokes, brush strokes. And then when this is dry, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna add some lowlights for him, so it gives his hair a little bit of depth. And this area around here looks pretty dry. I'm gonna be conscious of my edges, but fill this in here too. That's sort of the good thing about the color wash, is that it dries quickly. This is a little bit too dark, so I'm gonna get my paintbrush dry, and I'm gonna just soak up the paint. Look at that, it's like magic. Sponge. There we go. Soaked up all that paint, all that water. Okay, so the other thing that I did want to show you guys too is which colors to use for skin tones. I used peach for the one in the green. I also really like, let's see, this is sort of a good yellowish brown. If you like sort of a lighter brown, tannish, and then this is another good brown too, right here. This one's a little bit of a deeper brown. And why don't we give him a deeper brown? Here we go. And he's got a little, oh, I forgot to paint his mustache. Whoops. All right, we'll go back in and add that. But just again, not painting over the eyes or the nose, or you can paint over the nose, but don't paint over the eyes or the teeth or anything. Got that. Perfect. Looking so cute. Okay, for him, I'm going to do red tulips because the blue and white tulips are one of my more popular patterns, and I just want to make sure that everybody knows how to do a tulip. So I'm going to sort of go and I'm going to draw a U to create the outside of the tulip, and then I just draw a little A in the middle, and it sort of connects like that. And then you could also do sort of a bud, which is U's that are closer together with no little middle part. And I'm just going to kind of paint them randomly around him. And I'm also going to add a couple to the edge so that it looks like it's going off the edge for him. But see how I have a lot of paint and just a little bit of water? That really creates a contrast so that you can see that there's a pattern on top of the red. Let's do another little bud over this way. Maybe one more. Now, while these dry, I will later go and I'll fill in the rest down here as well. I think I might just do a little row of tulips across the bottom, like this. Like that. And then maybe polka dots or something across the bottom, we'll see. But I did want to show everybody the stripes as well. So to do stripes, I'm going to do red and green stripes, and I'm going to leave a little space. I'm going to do all the green all the red first, and then I'll let that dry, and then I'll do all the green. I'm going to do the same thing to his little cuff as well. And his belt. Very nice. And as long as I've got my little red out, I'm going to do his teeth. Very nice. Starting to come together, guys. Okay. Now the green that I'm going to use, I think I might do the same. I really like this way this green looks today, but please, again, feel free to try it on a little piece of scratch paper, flat on your paper towel, see how you're feeling about it before you commit. But I'm going to just paint a little line with my light brush, and then I'm going to press out like this to make leaves. And I'm going to sort of start out and work my way in. And they don't have to be, it actually looks this better if they're not the same, if you have them a little, each one's a little bit different. Kind of wavy. These also aren't perfect leaf shapes either. Some of them are just kind of wavy lines. All right, let's do these down here too. Oh, I'm really liking the green on the red. Okay, now that these are done for the time being, I'm going to just show you to do the green stripes in between. The red should be dry. Looking so good. Okay, and then, well, I could do something. Maybe I would do green up here. I almost like the way that this would look. Let's paint this part green. Kind of pull some more of that green in together. Okay, this is all that I'm going to bore you with this pattern for now, but I did want to show you just going over the black with my medium brush, and I'm just going to kind of trace a couple of little lines. These are a little thinner than I initially painted them. And that just gives it a little bit more detail. And let's paint his little eyebrows too. Eyebrows and mustache. Also, I feel like this up here is looking a little bit too dark, so I'm even going to take a little bit of water and just kind of blend these in a little bit. It just makes it look a little bit more intentional. I'll make this a little darker too. Something I did want to show everybody too is what you could use this technique for a rose or the top of a tulip, and I'm realizing I wanted to do that for this bottom part. So for this part we're going to do sort of a medium shade rose or circle. Just kind of random. These are a little bit too dark. I'm going to lighten them up a little bit. This one's too dark. Here we go. So we're going to paint these circles. And let me lighten some of these up by getting them wet and putting it on my paper towel. And then we're going to do a little swirl in the middle of them. And like I said, that technique looks like a rose, or in my case, it could just be an aerial tulip. Bird's eye view. Got that. And I'm going to go very dark, and I'm going to press really lightly so that it's a very thin line, but sort of go in there and then work your way out. This might even be a little bit too wet. Not super defined, but just a little something. And then I'm gonna add little leaves to these, like so. Boop. Perfect. Maybe one more right here. There we go. This one a little longer. Cute. Oh, there we have it. All right, I'm going to stop for the time being with these two techniques. I hope that I showed you or gave you a good impression of how to manage the faces and the hair. If there are any other patterns that you'd like me to look over with you, let me know. Drop me a message or leave it in the comments below and I'll add it. But I feel pretty good about your abilities and your skills, and I'm cheering you on. If you complete these, make sure that you send me pictures because I love to cheer people on. I hope that you have so much fun, as much fun with these as we have, because it's adorable and a really cute little time of year. So thank you again for following along. Again, all my supplies and my kits are available in the show notes down below, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.